4 in 10 people believe in ghosts. Over a third of people believe intelligent life exists outside of Earth. 43% of people believe demons exist. There are unexplained phenomena happening daily around the globe, and we are here to talk about it. Your portal into UFOs, paranormal, cryptids, the supernatural, the mysterious, the unknown. I see you. This is Beyond the Radar, and this is your host, Humanoid Tom Conway.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Radar, your paranormal news program. Thank you so much for tuning in again this Friday. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy schedules, especially a Friday night. You know how Fridays are, weekends. So taking time out to talk to sit down and watch us and our wonderful guests that we have this week. More importantly, please download our Oracle Talk Radio Network app. It'll connect you to our radio station, one of the first ever podcast radio stations on iHeartRadio. They're not even taken anymore, but we're on there. So, yes, and then streaming, please comment. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, subscribe, all that good stuff. And Emily, thank you so much for sitting through that part and getting through the little messages. I know, as a guest, it's always not the most fun, but Emily O'Neill is our guest, and I'm going to read a little introduction before she introduces herself. So Emily O'Neill has a mission to empower individuals through intuitive guidance. And as a trained evidential psychic medium, intuitive healer, and coach, she believes tarot, psychism, and mediumship are effective healing modalities. And it's her mission to raise the standard of care in these areas. I like that. In personalized sessions, she helps others tap into their inner wisdom, heal emotional wounds, and navigate life's challenges. Whether it's uncovering hidden strengths or embracing transformative change, she guides individuals towards alignment and their true selves. If you're curious but skeptical, rest assured she offers a grounded, ethical approach to intuitive healing and wants to create meaningful content on podcasts. So that's a little bit in a nutshell, Emily, what you do and a little bit of an introduction to you. So at this point, let me kick it over to you and let you introduce yourself to our wonderful Beyond the Radar fans.
Yeah, well, I'm Emily O'Neill, and my little business that I run is called Blooming Wand. So I've got tons of resources there, access to the podcast, all that stuff.
Okay.
Journals, meditations, all that good stuff. Because I feel like, so much of everything out on the internet has a paywall. And I'm like, oh, we can give some people some freebies, can't we now?
Yeah.
So, gosh, I don't really know what to say about myself. Other than I feel like I have had a bit of a different journey to becoming a psychic medium or an evidential psychic medium, which is kind of a new term people are tossing around these days.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I noticed that was new. I haven't come across the evidential part of that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, because I had one person say, well, don't all psychics and mediums come with the evidence? And I was like, well, you would think so.
Yeah. No, you're
but
right about that.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a term that my mentors have used, my teachers and mentors. And I think that the emphasis is that we really are trying to provide evidence that your loved ones from the other side can communicate with you and give information. And so we want it to be able to be validatable. So hence evidential. And it's the same when we work psychically, although psychism and mediumship they're different modalities. They don't work the same way.
Okay.
But we still want to be able to provide things that the person that we're working with can validate, information that they can say, yeah, that resonates with me. I can take that. That's true for me. So I think that's just, it's something I've added in there because there's just a lot in the industry. I feel like there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, which in some ways is wonderful. Quite wonderful, but it also means that the consumer or somebody who wants to find a practitioner has to sift through an awful lot. And it's hard to tell who's doing what and why they call themselves what they call themselves. And so I'm really open to having conversations about that because I think it brings clarity and understanding, and it educates the public about some of the stuff you see on the interwebs, so to speak.
Yeah. And I totally understand that. And I'm not a psychic or medium, but I can understand that because I'm also in a field where there's a lot of different things going on, and you credibility is everything, especially in the paranormal realm, because we don't have that hard science. I don't have those things to go back on.
Mhm.
Um, we have feeling, a lot of they might, a lot of people say if you're into the paranormal, you just have some level of being into it if you just don't know
Mhm.
about it yet, right? And some say, some people, everybody has it, whether they want to, address it or not,
Yeah.
but you're right, because in the field, there, both of ours, there's a lot of people doing the wrong thing, and
Yeah.
you don't want to be lumped in with them. We have to be harsher than the harsher critics. We have to be more
Mhm.
than critics, is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
because we deal with all of that believability, and if nobody believes you, you're done. There's no point of carrying on.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And one of the things that I've observed and frankly have had to come to terms with is that some of the most popular things or most popular accounts aren't necessarily don't share the same values that I do, or
Mhm.
um, what they're doing might get a lot of attention, but it might not demonstrate what psychic mediums can do in a way that I feel is as ethical and grounded as I would like to see it.
Okay.
And yet it's very popular. Like there's all kinds of things that are super duper popular and very attention grabbing, and I understand why people want to consume it. But if you stop and think about it, you can say like, oh, that's like what's really going on there. The example that I always give
Okay.
because it's
We love
so
examples
common.
here.
Oh yeah, examples give context. So is where you can be scrolling on any pretty much social media platform and you'll have somebody who's a psychic medium, and I don't doubt that they are, but they'll channel dead celebrities and there's nobody to validate the information that
Ah,
they're bringing through. Nobody can validate it. And they didn't get consent from their families, friends, or loved ones. So they're just reading people without their consent, saying things that can't be validated, and maybe some of the things down the road they say do prove to be true or whatever, but my value system would say that that's not cool, because
yeah.
nobody consented to that reading, and it's very much a sense like sensationalizing things and just getting attention. And so, but I know they're really popular. Every time I
Yeah.
say that, people are like, "But I love those watching that
And
stuff."
you
I'm like,
can.
"Well,
I'm not
then
telling
you
you to
can,
stop.
yeah. If
Yeah.
you like it, then go ahead and watch it." I wouldn't tell you not to, but it's just not something that I would want to perpetuate or consume. And then the other one, which is there's a little bit more nuance here, is when people are like, I'm channeling a star seed, or or like, how do you know if you're a star seed or a Palladian? And I can channel messages from them. Again, you can't validate any of that. And we don't necessarily look, I love mystical, magical things. Like
Mhm.
if you people that know me are like, Emily loves that stuff. But I also, if I'm gonna work with people, I really take that seriously because I know that these modalities, working with the tarot, um, getting psychic readings or having a mediumship session, can really help people. And so I'm probably like the boring humdrum evidential psychic medium over here that's like, let's keep it grounded and let's keep it supported to your personal evolution and a tool for self-discovery. And it's probably not as sexy as some of the other things that you see on the internet, but I think that um, it just is, that's what's in alignment with my value system. So that's kind of how I am. And I do think that people appreciate it because I know that people have come to me after having had experiences that were not so good,
Yeah.
that caused them some harm. So I'm like, well, that won't happen here. And they're like, oh, good, because I like getting readings. I like doing this stuff, but I don't want somebody to say something that's going to hurt me or stuff like that. So
Yeah.
like I saw one psychic medium on a live tell someone they were going to die. Like I was just like, what the?
Oh,
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I can. This is a very
yeah.
popular one, very, very popular. And I just thought, I literally was like, did I just see that? Did
Yeah,
you
did I
tell that
just
person they
yeah.
were gonna die? Why would you do that? Like, that's just
Oh,
not
Merry
helpful.
Christmas.
Yeah, and I don't know that I know, yeah, Merry Christmas. I don't know that that person did pass away or not, but I just, it was just it was very strange. So, I think that an educated public is an empowered public, and that they can
Yes,
use
that's
critical
true.
thinking to sift through things and find stuff that maybe is more in alignment with their values or what they're looking for. And so, yeah, I kind of try to lead by example, but I certainly don't believe that I'm the only example.
Well, that's a wonderful way to put that. And I would have, I wouldn't have been able to believe that somebody told it, because to me, that is like a very pure form of intimacy that when you're reading somebody, right? I would have to imagine it's a very intimate procedure, because you're really sifting through layers and you're getting to know real factual or evidential information about
Mhm.
them. I I would have to argue or question, is that the psychic or intuitive place to tell somebody when they die,
I
even
don't
if
believe
asked?
that it is. I don't think it is. And if
Yeah.
I were being honest in my personal experience with readings, um, the information that I tend to get, well, I do have to deliver difficult information sometimes. It's never
Yeah,
to
it comes with
scare,
it.
it's to make people aware and to support them and to help them. So, um, I feel like I've never even encountered that, and maybe that is because it's of my system or the intention that I've kind of set with my work. But yeah, that's part of the reason it was so shocking to me. I was like, I don't. I mean, that's not 100% true. Have I had a sense that people might pass? Yes. Do I necessarily bring it up with them? No. I can keep things to myself, and usually it's somebody has like mentioned an illness to me, and it's somebody that I know, and I can kind of tell them like, okay, this is going to be a long road, or this is going to be
Yeah.
quick, or whatever. And um, I just there's a lot of ethics around that, and I feel like one of the things that really helped me to navigate like challenging situations with people that you're working with, like how do I say this in a tactful way?
Yeah.
I've never felt like I had to withhold information, but I've definitely had to learn how to say things tactfully, clearly,
Yeah.
concisely. Like that's part of the skill of actually being an evidential psychic medium is we can get the information, but can you articulate it well, verbally? And that's a skill. Like some of us are
It
better at
is.
that than others, and
That is.
and and
Yeah.
mediumship training and development helps us to train our awareness, so we soften our awareness and become kind of in a passive and receptive state, and we can pick up on information and deliver it. But that's not the skill of being able to verbalize it. So there's kind of two things going on there. But what really helped me was doing practice circles. Going to practice circles that were well rounded and well run,
Hmm.
to be able to be in a safe environment where you can mess up and it's okay. I mean, because we're all practicing, and
That's true. Yeah.
I think it's fun to learn and grow in community anyhow. I think the best psychic mediums have a good community where they have had a chance to learn and grow and mess up and refine their skill set. Although I know that there's a very popular belief of people just being born with this ability and then they just kind of go into the field and work in it. And by just giving readings and getting experience that way, that wasn't what happened to me or how it worked for me. I think I had a little bit of a different journey, and some people think of it as a gift. I can tell you mine wasn't a gift. I had to work really hard to get the skill set. Like I had to, I mean, did I maybe come with a little bit of an aptitude for it? Probably, but I had to train. Like I trained. I'm just wrapping up 3 years of intensive training, mediumship training, and that involved working with the public and having those sessions evaluated and reviewed and talking about them with my mentors and everything about
Hmm.
what went well and what didn't. And I'm so grateful that I had found a community where I could do that and made friends that are other mediums where we don't feel like we have to compete with each other. We just support each other and know there's
Oh, that's
there's
wonderful.
plenty of work to go around, that's for sure. And
And we all
we
need help.
and we all need I do. So and we can help each other, and which is something that I really appreciate because we have good days and we have bad days. We're not machines. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes you knock it out of the park, sometimes your readings are okay, and sometimes you have to tell somebody, we're gonna have to reschedule this because I'm not really getting anything, because that can happen sometimes. I'm knocking on wood because that has never happened to me.
Mhm.
Not since early years, early years of doing this, but it can and it does, and you just have to be able to work with that because there's all kinds of reasons why it can be hard to give a mediumship reading, just based off of what's going on in your personal life. If you're sick, if you just got in a fight with somebody, it can be really hard to
True. Yeah.
throw yourself into that kind of altered state that we have to be in to do readings. So I always like to talk about that with people too, because we see things on TV and we think this just like
Yeah.
it just happens automatically or
You
whatever.
can just like flip a switch and there now I'm a now I can read.
You kind of can flip a switch, but that flipping that switch can be easy sometimes, and sometimes it can be hard for various reasons, because you really do have to set aside thinking mind, kind of what you're dealing with emotionally as your own self. All of that has to be over here, and you have to be blended with the energy of the spirit that you're communicating with. And sometimes it's more than one. I often get several at the same time, and so I'm like, I got 3 people here, and have to navigate that. So you just because it's about what you're doing with your awareness. And so if you're stressed out, it can be hard to be like passive and
Yeah.
receptive, if that makes sense, because that's the state of awareness that we're in. It's very passive and it's super duper receptive.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because like think about a traditional job, right? You're expected to leave it at the door, right, when you
Mhm,
walk in, and that's always easier said than done. You know what I
mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
Depending, it could be financial troubles, emotional troubles, mom sick, dad sick, or you got in a fight with a partner.
Yep.
How many we love to say, "Oh, I leave it at the door," but how many of us really leave it at the door? You know what I mean? And it's not. I figured it would work the same way with you as well, but
Mhm.
it seems like it seems like you knew where I was going. So +1 for you on your mediumship there, because I was going to ask about first realizing your extrasensory abilities.
Yeah, I don't know that I had a full awareness of it until I probably would say I was in my early 30s, so I'm in my 40s now,
Okay.
and I look back at my childhood though, and I'm like, it was so there in terms of being like really intuitive and picking up on lots of stuff that was going on around me. And I remember adults being like, how do you know that? To me all the time, like, how's that kid know my business? And I'd be
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I just do. And I thought everybody walked around being able to walk into a room and know who liked who was fighting, who was about to lose their job. I just thought everybody could do that.
Okay.
Um, because when you grow up with no model or nobody talking to you about it, you're young, you just make assumptions. So
It's
that's
true.
what we
Yeah.
do,
You don't
right?
have that guide. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have any context or a guide for it, but my mom was really into new age spirituality. Like,
Oh.
yeah, she's raised Catholic, but always into self-help, particularly some of the new agey stuff. So I had access to a lot of all her books. Both of my parents read a lot, and I remember looking at them and being like, wow, psychics, whoa, mediums, this is so cool. And even though I had access to that, never thinking it was me. Didn't think it was
Yeah.
me. I was like, that's not me. And so um but I remember sometimes, particularly in high school, I'd had premonitions of like, oh, I'd see somebody at a certain time or place and then it would happen, and just being like, not thinking much about
Yeah.
it. And but then it was during the pandemic, a lot changed for me and I had time on my hands. I think a lot of people did. And I was like, what to do, what to do. So I joined
Yeah.
this tarot group. And it was just a 9-week course and we met pretty frequently. And I just wanted to learn tarot. So I was like, this will be fun. But what happened was I learned to read the cards intuitively. So I'm not an academic tarot reader, although I've studied it academically. That's
Okay.
just not my favorite mode of working with it. It's more of a psycho-spiritual or intuitive tool for me. When we got in there, I was just kicking ass. but it wasn't coming from the cards. And so
Wow.
I remember my teacher who really didn't want to talk about psychic stuff and could probably consider herself a psychic at all, was like, yeah, you've got something else going on here. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what might that be? So she's like, I think you're psychic. I think you're picking up on a lot of this is sort of like a psychic tarot experience. People can be intuitive readers and not necessarily be a psychic or a medium. But for me, it was just like this little doorway that went whoof for me to just get access to all of those intuitive abilities. And then there came a point where I didn't need to use cards. And then during a session, it was like I accidentally started bringing people through. And a client was like, whoa, I think you're bringing through so-and-so. And I'm like, but I'm not a medium. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't want these things to keep happening with clients randomly, because that didn't feel so good. So I kind of put it up to spirit. I was like, help me. I need help. I need a place where I can practice and learn and grow how this will work, what the techniques and the tools could be, so I can do this repeatedly, consistently, and at a certain level of like standard of care. So I'm hitting this level of being able to provide a certain kind of reading that's consistent, not all over the place, that I'm kind of hitting a certain mark every time. And that's when I found the Oakbridge Institute, which is an online school that's run out of California, and it's medium Michael Mayo and medium Megan Elisa. Megan Elisa's become very popular on the TikTok because she does really grounded, helpful, informative videos that people are like, I didn't know it worked like that. So she's really great at educating the public. They're both actually exceptional mediums. Like, I'm still in awe of them, even though they've been training me for 3 years. I'm always like, whoa, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you're doing it too, but it's just different when you get to see. You have like, it gives me something to aspire to, I think, because we're always learning, and like the development actually never stops. And that's one of the things that I kind of like about mediumship. But that was kind of my journey, is like I figured out, oh yeah, you can do these things. And then I thought, well, how am I gonna develop the skill set if I'm just floating around out here on my own? You kind of need to work with people that are bigger, better, faster, stronger if you want to get better.
That's true.
Find people that know more than you do and work with them. So that has been really fun. I've enjoyed that process immensely. I love working with people. I love what I do. It's such a very rewarding field to be in. And, I feel like mediumship has taught me more about myself as a person. I have learned a lot. I've had to do a lot of personal development to be able to do this work, because it does a strange thing of bringing up your personal problems to you. It's like, So when you maybe don't give a good reading, you're going to be asked, why was that? And for me, a lot of times it was because I could not become passive and receptive enough to just let the information flow to me, like flow to my consciousness and out my mouth and to the person that I was working with. I would always kind of stop it because I would be afraid that I was going to be wrong. So, raise your hand if you're a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Like, I can never be wrong. Yes, like because you have to say things that don't make any sense to you. And you don't really, like, you kind of know where it's coming from. In theory, it's like you feel the spirit communicator come, they give you the information, you make that link with them, and then you pass it on, right? But it's kind of weird. Like, well, I'm getting this information, and I know I'm getting it, and now I have to speak it, and it's some stuff that makes literally no sense to me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it comes in pieces. Sometimes, like, you get a little breadcrumb, a little breadcrumb, a little breadcrumb. Oh, okay, whole picture. So you have to be really willing to say whatever comes into your awareness. And the fear of being wrong came up for me, and some of my perfectionist tendencies really, I call them my little gremlins. They really came to the surface. And also people pleasing was a thing. I was like, oh, I want to do good for you and please you and make you happy. And it's like, well, I'm in service to spirit.
Yeah.
And I can give that information to the sitter. They don't always like how the sessions go. Most of the time they do, but like if you can't get who they want, right? Because we get who we get and we pass it
Yeah.
on. 9 times out of 10 is it who the people want? Yeah. But sometimes it isn't. Sometimes, like, I had somebody who, I don't know if she really had ever had a reading before or had a need. Like, she hadn't lost anybody really, but she was curious about how it worked. And I brought through like 3 different people for her, and she was just like,
Yeah.
But I know that I did a good job because she
Yeah.
validated the information. It was evidential. And she was like, yeah, but she just didn't care. It was just like not her thing. And I'm like,
All right.
fair enough. That's how that
Yeah.
reading's going to go. And then you have the ones where people are like, you're so amazing. That's great. And you just have to learn to they're all the same. Treat them all readings the same. There's no hierarchy of experience. You can't let your ego get wrapped up in people praising you when you do good and not praising you if
Yeah.
they don't feel like that wowed by the experience or whatever. You just have to be very neutral, and that requires practice. And so I'm thankful for having many years of like a mindfulness practice and a yoga practice where you kind of, again, that's another form of training your awareness, to understand yourself. And that's a big part of what being a medium is learning about yourself.
Yeah, no, there's how many sayings, we could list a number of sayings, cleaning your side street, you have to make sure your house is in order, all those kind of things. And that's where I would think, and again, somebody who hasn't went through training, that's where I would think a lot of the foundational stuff has to happen is you're not only trying to train external skills and communicate, and receive, be intuitive and receptive, but you also have to work on a lot of internal things. You know what I mean? Because that would be something, what you just mentioned there, that's something that I know I would have a struggle with is I don't want to be wrong. I've put X amount of time into this. I don't want it to be for nothing. I'm hearing this. Wait, do I mean it this way or this way? You know what I mean? And like how you said, let it come and right out your mouth, right?
Yep.
You're giving it right back out. I know for a fact that, if I were to do that, that would be something I would struggle with because it won't make sense to me, but it's not my spirit to communicate with. You know what I mean? You're in service to that spirit, to whomever. And, the people, you'd want everybody to do a great job. I mean, look, every place has a review. Almost every place has a tip button. We want to have that immediate, we did a good job for you, right? We want to do that. But you're right. They might want mom, but they're getting Uncle Bill.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, we do try to do this thing called going direct. So like if I'm not where somebody wants me to be, I'll check in usually and be like, are we where we want to be? And like, I was kind of hoping to hear from so-and-so, not my ex-boyfriend that's on the other side, like, okay. And then I'll just, and I'll just say, let me see. And then usually we can get there, but not necessarily always. But one of the things we had to do in one of our practice circles is my teacher, Michael, was like, okay, so we're going to practice, but you're going to tell the medium that you're working with. So if I was the sitter, every time they bring forth a piece of information, even if it's right, tell them, no, you can't take it. So just be like, no, or have like a bad attitude and be like, no, be the skeptic. So we had to do that to each other. It was fun. I was really good at it.
Yeah.
I really was like, man, I'm going to throw this person off.
Yeah.
But the goal was to not let yourself be thrown off by your sitter, to trust what you're getting from spirit, always first and foremost, because people will try to trick you. So you have to be
you ran into that?
No, I haven't, but I don't know why someone would pay for a reading just to do that. I mean, like,
that's true.
That's your money.
But
now you just, it's an incredible amount of trust that in the information that you're getting, and it's very much going with the flow. And I have to tell you, like, that's not my personality type. I am not like some laid back chick that goes with the flow. I'm actually, like, I have a very analytical, process-oriented mind. I worked in project management for healthcare information systems and technology, like tech
I'm a former
stuff.
IT director, so I understand.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yes.
checklists. It's
Yeah, and it'd be like, or build a software system or build
Yep.
workflows into the system and thing. Like, I'm ace at that. Like, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm like, but what was really fun was working in that field.
Bring back Visio. Bring back Visio.
Really? One of the things that I realize now in hindsight, we're working in the healthcare industry as project management, particularly in information systems and technology, was I could walk into a healthcare office or a department and I would just know the workflow. I'd be like, oh, I know what's going on here. And people would be like, how do you know that? I'd be like, oh, but I would always obviously talk to everybody to and write it all down. But I was like, I have a pretty good sense of what's going on here, the efficiencies, the inefficiencies, the breakdowns, and exactly what I need to build for you into the system. And I won't lie, I was really good at that. And I realized it was probably my intuition, a little bit of psychic stuff going on there. And I always delivered everything on time and under budget. And I really do attribute it to being that honed in. Did I know at the time that that's what I was doing? No. Can I see that very clearly now? Absolutely. And it was actually very fulfilling to be able to produce things that help people, because healthcare systems take care of patients, and so that was really rewarding. And it's probably where I get a little bit of my value system as working as an evidential medium is client care, right? Standard of care, that kind of language that I use, because I have a background in healthcare and I know the harm and the good that can be done when we don't have ethics, when we don't have values that are clearly articulated to people, so they know, like, oh, she's in this zone, this is kind of how she's going to operate. Because I've helped people to heal, I've helped people to learn about themselves, and we can apply intuition or working psychically or mediumistically, not just to become a psychic medium that works with clients. Those same skills can be applied inward for self-development and self-care.
Yes.
It's using the skill instead of externally, internally. And so when people come to me and they want to be mentored, that's what I teach them, unless they want to become a evidential psychic medium that wants to work with the public. But most people don't. Most of the people are just kind of curious about it. They think it's cool. They want to learn it. They want to learn how to do it. And then I'm like, let's take it a step further and use it as a self-care tool to help you learn more about you and what's going on inside of you. Because just what we were talking about earlier, our intuition is our birthright. It's part of our inner guidance system, but there's all kinds of good reasons why we have a hard time connecting with it. Trauma, life experiences, people literally telling us it doesn't exist, which I think comes from the patriarchy and probably some religious things. Although people that are prophetic or having visions or being psychic, it's all over in like all kinds of religious traditions. So it's curious to me that now it's like woo-woo or whatever. I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's Bible stories about that. But it's just a completely normal and natural thing for us to do. And the more we're connected to it, the more we're kind of leaning into not just analytical thinking mind. We incorporate our whole self, because there's 4 aspects of self: spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, and maybe another one. Maybe it's just this intuitive part that maybe is part of the spiritual part, but I would argue it's part of the emotional one, the physical body one, because it's a very physical language, intuition, isn't it? It's not necessarily like somebody's speaking to you. You feel, you sense, and then you know.
Yeah. I can absolutely agree that there's a certain physical part that comes to it, and it definitely picked up on everything you were saying back with the healthcare information stuff. And one of the things I would always, back in my last 9 to 5 type of job, as an IT director, I preached this and I wrote it on my whiteboard in my office. Listen, when it comes to healthcare and IT, we are not the show. We put on the show. We are not in front of the camera actors. We are the ones running the camera.
Yeah.
And without us, the show doesn't go on. And that's not an ego thing. That needs to tell you the importance of uptime, reliability, and, eliminating waste. And waste doesn't always mean money. It doesn't mean money. It means time. It means effort. How can we make things faster, quicker, better?
Mhm.
And especially I'll die on this hill. Every single health information system, any type of med, EHR, EMR, every single type of them has something wrong with them. And because if they didn't, there would only be one, and everybody would have it. There's
Mhm.
always what you prioritize as a healthcare facility, right?
Mhm.
So there's always going to be ways to make it better. And that's the stuff that I would preach back at that time is, listen, get out of yourself. You don't join, and that's a big thing that I have with IT, because there's a lot of people in there who, it's me, I'm, and the ego is running wild. I've gotten very far at a young age by saying, look, you got to get out of yourself. This isn't about us. It's never going to be about us.
Yeah.
And if I could just take that into life too, you know what I mean? Get out of self. And it's hard. And I'm never going to say it's easy. And I'm never going to say I got it. You know what I mean? Because I don't. I would be very honest with you.
Mhm.
You progress on yourself every day
Yeah.
to try to kill your ego a little bit more, to try to be a little more in service to others. But
Yeah, and
sometimes,
I like
Yeah.
what you said about that you're never there, because if you think you know it all, well,
Yeah.
then you're a know-it-all. But then you
Yeah.
stop learning and you stop
You do.
growing, and you like maintaining a love of learning and always being curious. Not a bad thing. It's not going to hurt you. It might make you might make you struggle a little bit, because paradigms are going to break down within the self and
Yeah.
potentially externally as well, and that could be difficult, but we want that to happen. We want the messy middle to happen, because it means that we're learning
Mhm.
and growing and stuff like that. Actually, it makes me laugh because I often worked with people who were in leadership roles who said the same thing that you do about um, when we are working in technical fields, being of service. It's a service-oriented job, and we're there to make sure that the tools are working, not building things that work for us, because it's like what we like. It's like, no, you make sure this works
Nothing would
for
look right if we build it.
Yeah, I
for
know,
us.
right? I can't help but think of a couple of times where I was like, well, looking at, not to be a generalizer, but looking at some IT dudes, because I was female in a male-dominated
Yeah,
field.
no, I'm sure you've seen
And being like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
What's going on over here? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I just get a chuckle out of it, 'cause some memories are coming back. But again, like, it's funny, because I know that my intuition guided me in a lot of those moments, and like softening into a sense and having to be like, okay, I can sense that something's kind of happening, but we'll have to deal with that in a hopefully a kind and gentle way. But I would also say that one of the things that people have mentioned to me who've worked with me, who are like, I'm more in touch with their intuition, and they're like, well, knowledge is power, but sometimes it's kind of a burden. I'm like, yeah, I know. I know. It's like,
So true.
yeah, it is empowering, but it can be sometimes a heavy weight to bear at times too.
Yeah. To not bring it in here,
Mhm.
especially in yours, when maybe you do get somebody telling you something that's, oh man, I don't know if I should tell them. I don't know.
I have had that happen, and I know that it wouldn't come to me if I wasn't meant to convey it. I really do trust
Okay.
that. And I never get anything like too crazy, but it could be something like, well, what's one that I could give that's tangible? So an example I would give is like people traveling. I'll be like, oh man, like don't go. You've got your trip planned for August. Oh, yeah, I don't think that's a good time to be traveling. And then they'll be like, why? And I'll be like, I just have a feeling. They'll text me back like, you were right about the August travel. I should have listened and just
Yeah.
rescheduled it a month or whatever, because all our flights were delayed. My bags are lost. Like it rained the whole time, and I was like, yeah, I had a feeling like that wasn't the best timing. So, and that's a lighthearted example, but there's others where people really want a job. They're like, can you tell me about my career or tell me about this or that? And I have to say, like, that isn't the one. But something will come, and this is when I sense that that will happen. Or relationship stuff is a big one, because like people come for that, and I always
There's a lot
prefer
of
if
unrequited love out there too.
yeah, that's true, and I prefer if couples come to see me together, because I love to do readings for couples. It's so fun.
It could be
It's so
awful, I can imagine.
Oh, no, I've never had an awful one. It's always fun, but there'll be people that are like, I would never read a person that wasn't working with me, so I don't do that. But
Okay.
and within the reading, I
Tell
can
me if they
see.
cheated.
Yeah. Well, if they ask me that and I get that info, I will be like, well,
Wow.
there might be something going on there, and you need to be prepared to handle that. Let me help you sense into how you might want to move forward if you feel that's going on, and so do I. You know what I mean? Like, and people will often feel validated in a session. Like, I kind of already knew, but you just validated this for me, and then they feel empowered to take mindful action and do what they know they need to do for themselves, which is really great. But I definitely have had clients. I have a lot of women, I would say 45 to 55. I work with anybody, but that just tends to be, the midlife transition. Middle-aged women love working with me. And so a lot of them, that's one of the highest dating brackets now, is kind of the over 50. And so some of them I can be like, whoa, you get lots of dates, don't you? You never have a problem getting dates. And they'll be like, nope, but guess what? I can't find a good one. And I'll be like, okay, let's work with that. Or I'll have other people where it's more of like, why do I always pick the wrong person? Like, I meet people, and then it's like these patterns are occurring. Like, how do I break the pattern? I'm like, let me help you with that. My preference is, unless it's a mediumship reading, which I think you can do one and done sessions with pretty easily. But with psychic and intuitive readings, there's a reason I have a mentorship program, because we're going to open a can of worms, more than likely, not always. And then you might want support through it. And a lot of the people that I end up doing that, they'll have a therapist and they'll have me. And that works really, really well together, because I use some I call them intuitive exercises or practices, to go into the self and find out what's going on within your inner guidance system. And it'll bring up some stuff from the past, or it might bring up some emotions and things like that, and then hold space for it, so we can understand the why behind, why am I like this? Why do I do that? Why does this keep happening to me? What are these behavioral mechanisms that I can't seem to break out of? So that's really rewarding work, and that's what I mean about being able to raise the standard of care. But there are other psychic mediums who are like, I want to see you once, and like, I don't want to see you again, or like once a year, because it does require quite a bit of practice to not get in your head when you work with people more than one time, meaning that you really are kind of using your intuitive abilities, not what you think about them. Does that make sense?
Crossover
your
into the
bias.
other side of it.
It's easier for your bias can always come in, but the more you know about somebody, again, information is empowering, but it can also be challenging. The more your bias is going to want to come in. But for whatever reason, like, I don't know, maybe it's just the years of working just as a psychic. Like, I don't seem to have too much of a problem with that most of the time. I like seeing people more than once. I think it's fun.
Yeah, and I'm sure you run into the portion too that it's, we went over this. We went over this, and then at that point, is that your bias, or are you just repeating what was the information that was given to you?
Sometimes people can't accept what is.
Oh yeah, acceptance is a huge thing that people have a problem
One of
with.
my biggest phrases, we're going to try to accept what is as it is in any given moment. And it's not rolling over or giving up or not fighting for the right thing or doing that. It's just, we really have to take things for what they are. And you can go and get 10 readings and get somebody telling you the same thing 10 times, and people will still be like, but I don't like that. It's like, well,
Yeah,
that's the way that it is.
it's
And
certain.
I have only had that experience once with a person, and I just told them, I think you're having a hard time accepting what's going on right now. I can help you with that, but we're not going to do another reading on this. This is just not, it's not helpful to you, because sometimes people are scared or panicked and they'll get their tarot deck out and they'll be like, I'm going to pull a bunch of cards about the same thing. I'm like, don't do that when you're stressed. Don't
Yeah.
do that when you're panicking or like really, really worried, because that is going to color the experience and the reading if you're trying to do it for yourself or if you're going to somebody. So that's what I mean about the bias. I'm like, no, wait till you're not in a chaotic state to maybe turn to those tools to do readings for yourself. Or
Yeah.
because people can't always take things on board and they really want to know, but there's a difference between knowledge and then trying to control something. And I think
Oh, yeah.
that's the nuance, is like, just because I'm a psychic medium and I might know things doesn't mean I get to spiritually bypass or emotionally. It looks like I don't get to avoid or bypass troubles. Shit
Yeah.
happens to me too. And I
Yeah.
might get a sense that it's coming, but it's still coming.
Mm-hmm.
But I can maybe take more mindful action or ground myself or prepare myself for the things that are to come, but I don't get to avoid it.
No, you don't change the future. If
Nope.
anything, you
And
might
I don't know the
help.
lottery numbers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you're tired of that one.
Well, people will be like, "You're a psychic. Didn't you know I was going to be late to my session?" And I'm just like, "I'm not tapped into you until I see you." Like, no,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know everything. It
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. But I used to think that it did. I won't lie. I used to think like, why
Well,
can't
until
I
you're
do that?
educated, you're gonna make any assumption, you want. Your life is easier because you do this. You're luckier than most. You know what I mean? But people don't realize that I've been I've been like called out almost, calling
Mhm,
it gifts,
mhm.
because they're like, I'd rather you call it a skill because sometimes this is a real burden and I don't want to have to do this,
Yeah.
and people don't realize it because we can only judge on our life experience. If you don't have
Mhm.
or haven't gotten to that point with your skills yet, you're not going to know what somebody else is
Well, and the
going through with that.
reality is anybody can learn to do what I do. Anybody can do it. You already have the natural tools inside of you. If it's just a matter of if you want to or not. And good on you if you don't. Like, that's fine. But no, anybody can do this. And I've done little psychic exercises with people before, and they're like, "Oh my god, that's how it works." I'm like, it's not rocket science, believe it or not. It's pretty simple. Simple doesn't mean easy, but it's the technique is relatively simple. But it's the stuff we bring to it that can get in the way of the process working itself. But
Yeah.
I just work the process. Like, process, it works for me. I work the process, and anytime I get a little squeamish or think things might be going haywire, I'm like, go back to the process, work the
Yeah.
process, do what you know works. And it does, pretty consistently. But the gifts thing, I used to think that too. And a lot of people back in the day used to write about it in that manner. Particularly, I feel like that, I don't know maybe exactly when that started happening, but when I was reading my mom's New Age spirituality books, I read a lot about these gifts. That's how it
Hmm.
was presented a lot of the time. And I was also the kid that came home after school and watched Oprah and would see like James Van Praagh on
Oh yeah.
Oprah. Like, that was my first experience watching somebody do what's called platform mediumship, where they are in a room with a lot of people. They tap in and then they have to figure out who's this spirit communicator goes to who in this group. And I want to start doing that more because I think it's fun. It scares the crap out of me. It makes me feel like I'm going to poop a pumpkin, but it's fun. You just sort of have to throw yourself off that cliff and see what happens. But that was when I was like, whoa, I was like, that's so cool. But I feel like he called it gifts a lot. And I remember you have to be, here's the thing that I always think about with mediums is and I always worry, like, I hope I'm not doing that, is being really suggestive in reading. So sometimes a
Okay.
medium will be like, I've got John here. Who knows a John? It's like, we shouldn't be asking our sitters any questions, which is actually hard because I found
Yeah.
myself in a reading just this week and I was like, oh, was that a cat? I think I said it. And I was like, no, yeah, I want to say, oh, and this would feel like it's a cat. Does that resonate with you? We shouldn't be asking any questions because it's the power of the suggestion comes in. And that's what,
Yeah.
looping back to how we speak and the way we present the information, we have to be trained in that too, because otherwise we're kind of getting fed information, even if it's subtle. And
Mhm.
then it's not as pure of a reading. And I remember not understanding that, but now I look back at some of those things I watched in those days of daytime television.
Yeah.
Mediums were popular on daytime
They
television, that
were,
some of them
especially
were
in the
very,
90s.
oh
Sylvia
God, that's,
Brown,
oh,
Tom
Sylvia
Silver,
Brown,
you know?
she did some things that disturbed me a couple of times. I was like, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But like I said, just because someone's famous doesn't mean that they're the best medium. And I'm not criticizing her work. That I'd
Mhm.
have to dive more into it. But I just remember her saying something on television once. I was like, that doesn't seem like a very good thing to do, saying to somebody. But yeah, just because they're popular doesn't mean that they're the best medium. And that's why I tell people, don't just pick the most popular medium
Yeah.
off social media and go to them. They might not be what you think they are.
Everybody can pay for followers and everybody can pay for shares.
Well, sometimes they get followers not for their work, but for some of the more sensationalist or attention-grabbing things that they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And you probably, if you're going to make that investment, because not all mediums are expensive, I wouldn't say that, but it can be an investment to work with a good medium because it's hard work, by the way. And it's
Yeah.
not
No,
like
I'm sure.
we don't make a ton of money. Like,
Okay.
it's not like just doing
Well, you
readings
have
is,
to constantly find your, clientele and have them
well,
stick
and you
and all
can,
that
I
too.
don't know how other people work, but I don't want to be doing 10 mediumship readings a week. I'll do
Yeah.
3 and then I'll
Okay.
fill it with like other stuff. But because it's just, you have to be in that right frame of mind. And I don't want to have to be that every day. You know what I mean? I don't have to be in that
Yeah.
state every day for several hours a day because I also have to get out of that state of mind.
To recharge, right?
Well, also
Yeah.
just to function. The other day I did
Well,
readings,
that's true. Yeah.
and afterwards I was like, I feel like I'm not here all the way. And I was like trying to do dishes or something. I was like, oh, it's like, Emily, you need to get grounded so you can do practical things. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's not, so that's why sessions cost probably what they do, is because it's not easy to do that all day, every day of the week. And most mediums don't. But anyway, I rambled and lost my train of thought thinking about that 90s television stuff, but that's where I learned a lot
Yeah.
about mediums, and most of them were, other than Sylvia Brown, a lot of them were white men though.
Mhm.
I do remember that and
Yeah.
thinking like, where's somebody that maybe looks like me or is different than that,
Yeah.
that's out there. Not that there weren't any, it's just it seemed like those were the ones that got a lot of
Attention.
the media attention. So,
Yeah.
and we all need models that we can relate to.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. I mean, it's you're going to be more receptive, right? You know what I mean? When somebody's telling you something that, you resonate with. And
Yeah.
and that's where it all has to come from,
Yeah.
as well. And I think you're completely right. Oh my gosh, Emily, thank you so much. This has
You
been
bet.
such a wonderful and eye-opening experience. I really would love for you to come back because we just started talking and
I know.
we really didn't get into questions. But no, it's a very good interview. I really appreciated the thoughtfulness behind and the method, and that sort of thing as well. So I want you to take the next minute or two, a couple minutes, however long you want.
Mhm.
Tell everybody where they can find you, your books, to sign up, to get a reading. Go ahead. Time's yours.
So find me at bloomingwand.com. I've also got the podcast, the Blooming Wand Podcast, where we kind of dive into tarot archetypes in an intuitive way, and as a tool for self-reflection and self-discovery. And those would be the two main things that I'm where you can find me. Mediumship stuff. I always like to support the Oak Bridge Institute. So if people are interested in wanting to go to practice circles, I
Okay.
love the mentors there, or they want to maybe dive into taking some classes. It's oakbridgeinstitute.org. It's a safe place to learn and grow and develop as a community. And I also like to promote they have sittings that are very low cost that help the students like me get to work with the public, so that we can provide that higher level of care. And so I always tell people, check out if you want to have a reading, but you don't want to pay hundreds of dollars, because they have developing mediums that need sitters. So I always like to support my friends Michael and Megan at the Oak Bridge Institute.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I will, anybody listening to this live and want to listen on the podcast, check the show notes. I'll have Blooming Wands website in the show notes. And thank you so much again, Emily. Thank you for everyone listening. It's been a pleasure, and we can't wait to talk to you all next week. Thank you all. And again, Emily, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.